Aim the cameras, hit the lights, and cue the music. It's draft day here at 101 Sports. Hello, everybody. Matt Holzapfel back with Brad Klier and Will Burns for some 101 Sports draft analysis. Guys, how you doing?
I'm excited to be here. Draft day, baby.
Absolutely, me too. We're in quarterbacks, all right? Okay with that, quarterbacks? All right, so Kyler Murray is our first quarterback, and my beautiful co-host, Andrew Vendelis, has some information on him. Andrew?
Well, everybody knows about Kyler Murray. Everybody and their grandma, 2018 Heisman Trophy Award winner. And he set some records. Second most total yards out of Heisman Trophy winners, highest pass efficiency rating, and the first Heisman winner to wear the jersey number 1. Matt, back to you.
All right, Andrew, thank you for that. So, guys, Kyler Murray, projected number 1 overall pick. Brad, go ahead. What do you think?
So, I think it's the biggest lock and foregone conclusion of this draft that he's going to go with the Arizona Cardinals. It's another discussion whether it's the right move, considering Josh Rosen is there. They traded up to get him at number 10, Cliff Kingsbury. That's a whole separate discussion. You look at Murray as a quarterback, a lot of people like to look at the height. The thing I look at is his frame. Arizona is the worst offensive line in the league. He's going to get hit a ton. As far as his positives, though, he's got a great arm. He's accurate, makes big throws in the pocket, on the run. He's not a runner. He's a quarterback who's a thrower, who can run and extends plays with his legs. I think he's the only quarterback in this draft, at least I think, that can be a top 15 quarterback in the NFL.
Kyler Murray, definitely a good chance he goes to the Cardinals, but I think Cliff Kingsbury, obviously very sold on him. I don't know if the rest of the Cardinals organization is. A lot of this is about optics, and it's not a good look if the Cardinals just say, we're ready to move on from Josh Rosen after 1 year.
Well, it's happening.
They took him with the 10th pick last year. I do agree there is a good chance it's going to happen, but the argument can be made that the Raiders are going to take him at 4, and the Cardinals take a guy like Quinnen Williams or Nick Bosa with the first pick, who have potential to be the best player in this draft. As for the Raiders, I think they're not sold on Derek Carr. John Gruden behind closed doors doesn't seem sold on him. He's not their quarterback of the future. I think Kyler Murray, the mix with him and Antonio Brown is very promising.
Well, if it ever, it's not going to. So we're just playing hypothetical here. If
Exactly.
it ever got to a point where the Cardinals were not picking Kyler Murray first off, they would have irreparably damaged their relationship with Josh Rosen, and 2, it would become a bidding war to trade up to 1 to get Kyler Murray. But as you said, like in the hypothetical, him on the Raiders, I think it would be a great fit.
Oh,
As we've talked about, extends plays with his legs, great arm. You have a dynamic receiver like Antonio Brown. But again, I think it's the biggest lock in this draft. He's a Cardinal.
I see what you're saying. I just don't know if the Cardinals want the rest of the NFL, as well as their fan base, to think that they don't know what they're doing, because moving up in the draft last year, going with Rosen with the 10th pick, they're saying he's their quarterback in the future.
I wouldn't say that it shows they don't know what they're doing. What they're doing is they're tailoring their offense and team to the head coach they just hired, who's an offensive-minded head coach. And really, all this stuff in the last few days about whether or not decided on the pick or whatever, it's basic drumming up value, trying to get the biggest offer for Josh Rosen.
Very well could be.
So you guys mentioned Josh Rosen. We will get to him later. Quickly, before we pass on Kyler Murray, is his height an issue? Only 5'10". Is that going to be an issue in the NFL?
Like I said, I think it's more the frame than the height.
Mm-hmm.
I think it very well could be. I mean, you see guys like Drew Brees, Baker Mayfield have success, but there's only a few names
Russell
there.
Wilson, big contract too, just signed that. Yeah. All right, Kyler Murray, projected number 1 overall pick. Next up, Dwayne Haskins. Andrew, what do you got?
Potomac High School's own, shout out Maryland right there. 2-time Big Ten champion, back-to-back. Big Ten Player of the Year last year, 2019 Rose Bowl champion and MVP. And after starting 0 games in 2017, he set the single-season passing record in touchdowns and passing yards for the Buckeyes.
All right, Andrew, two-time Big Ten champion Dwayne Haskins. Will, what do you think about him?
I think the Giants are going to take him with the 6th pick in the draft. He led Ohio State to a 13-1 record last year. He has a higher completion percentage, higher pass yards, and a better TD to interception ratio than any other quarterback in the draft. That's including Kyler Murray. So the argument can be made that he is the best quarterback prospect in this draft. Yet Kyler Murray is projected to go number 1, and Haskins isn't. But he has a good frame. He's 6'3" compared to Kyler Murray, 5'11". He's mobile. He has a good arm.
Mobile?
I believe so.
All right. I think where Dwayne Haskins, when we talk about landing spots, to me it comes down to 2 places, and that's Cincinnati and Washington. I look at Cincinnati at 11, went to Ohio State. They just hired a new head coach in Zach Taylor, a former quarterback's coach. I think it largely depends on 2 things. Does Josh Rosen get traded to Washington?
Sure.
Or does Drew Lock get past Denver, which at this point seems like a possibility? And at that point, would Cincinnati prefer Lock or Haskins? Would Washington try to trade up with maybe the Lions at 8 to get in front of them? But I think it ends up being Cincinnati or Washington, and I think in some form those two teams end up one getting Drew Lock and one getting Dwayne Haskins. But back to Haskins, I'm not crazy about him as a prospect. I look at him, I don't think there's one particular skill that projects to be a really elite skill.
That's fair.
I would not say he's mobile. He's not very accurate. I think his stats were a little inflated. I'm not saying he's a bad prospect, but if you look at acquiring a franchise quarterback, I think it's very hard to draft a guy who you really kind of look at his ceiling as being a mediocre quarterback right away.
Well, I think you got to look at this from the Giants' perspective. This guy's a New Jersey native, and he has come out and said he's willing to be the successor to Eli Manning and learn under him for a year. The Giants are looking at Dave Gettleman said, I don't know if he knows what he's doing, but he did say they're trying to take the Chiefs' approach with what they did with Patrick Mahomes.
But at the same time, he's made the whole big point of take the best player available no matter what.
And I want to touch on something you said quickly before we move on to the next quarterback. Dwayne Haskins is not a mobile quarterback, right? His 40 time is slower than some D linemen.
Yeah.
Is that going to be a problem?
Yes, I think so, because you don't have to be a mobile quarterback to be successful. But I look at him, and he's a guy who it's almost to the point where it's a detriment. And again, without there being an above-average skill, whether it being a big arm, being super accurate, I don't see a way he's ever better than around the 20th or so best quarterback in the NFL.
One thing I do know is that he's more mobile than Eli Manning. So
that's true. That's all
I can say about that. Yeah.
JT Barrett, the only Ohio State quarterback in the NFL currently, he is on the Saints practice squad. Haskins would be the second. All right, we have one more quarterback, Daniel Jones. However, Andrew's left his post, so I will do the honors. Daniel Jones out of Duke started 36 games after Thomas Turk tore his Achilles back in 2016. Guys, Daniel Jones out of Duke, what do you think about him?
I would not have Daniel Jones in the top 50 prospects in this draft. I think the fact that he's being considered in the first round is ridiculous. I think he's a lesser version of Josh Allen, and I was not a fan of Josh Allen last year. He's all traits and all physical tools and Coach Cutcliffe without the production. He's not accurate. He has a big arm. That's it. He's tall. He's athletic. That's it. He's one of those guys who really looks at intangibles, looks at the physical traits and says, I can mold a quarterback into what I want. Then he's that. But I don't think there's enough production there. I don't think he's ever going to be a starting NFL quarterback. I think he's going to be a bust. Put that all together, though. The only team that I could see picking him in the first round would be the New York Giants at 17. I think he's going to get to 17. And at that point, it really matters whether do the Giants have him high on their board? Can they get a trade done for Josh Rosen? So if it's not the Giants at 17, I think it's very possible he can fall all the way out of the first round.
Definitely.
But if he's picked in the first round, I think it would be the Giants at 17.
Another team I think could pick him with the 15th pick is the Redskins. Not saying that I think they should, because I agree he's probably not a top 50 prospect in this draft. 60% completion percentage. Granted, his receivers weren't very good, and they didn't do a good job of getting open or catching balls for that matter. But the Redskins are kind of in dire needs right now. They don't have a very good QB depth right now. After Alex Smith goes down with that injury last year, he's not going to play next year.
If ever.
Yeah, exactly. They have Case Keenum, Colt McCoy.
But you have to look at it too. That would ensure that they have Daniel Jones higher on their board than perhaps both of Dwayne Haskins and Drew Lock, which I find very hard to believe. And then we also look at it. I think really what's going to dictate where Daniel Jones goes is where Josh Rosen goes.
Yeah.
Because if the New York Giants are able to complete a deal for Josh Rosen, that takes them out of Daniel Jones. And past the Redskins at 15, I don't see really there being a quarterback suitor unless a team like the Chargers wants to take him to be the backup to Phillip Rivers. They're in on Rosen trying to trade for him now. So, again, I think it really depends on where Rosen goes. But the fact that he's even being considered this high is ridiculous.
I agree.
The same thing happened with Josh Allen last year. Now, granted, he had a better year than most thought, but that accuracy issue was glaring. I think Daniel Jones is a worse prospect than that.
Absolutely.
And that issue is going to be there if he is drafted in the first round.
Duke
also.
has never had a quarterback taken in the first round. Daniel Jones would be the first, guys. To wrap up, before we dip out of here, Josh Rosen, if he is traded, where's he going? Just give me a team name. Will?
I'm thinking Bengals, possibly Giants. I hope the Giants, but I'm going to say the Bengals.
Brad?
I'm going to say the Giants or the Chargers.
All right, well, that does it for our quarterback NFL draft analysis, but stick around. Up next, Andrew and I will talk about the weirdest player rivalries we've seen in sports.